Good afternoon, boys. This is Dr. Infinity. Welcome to Whitepill Media.
Care to join me in a belt of scotch?
It's 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, but I haven't slept in days. Last chance. Oh, yeah.
This week, I'm going to be talking about the TV series Edward the Seventh. This came out in 1975. It's a 13-episode series. Each episode is about 50 minutes, and it follows the life of Edward the Seventh. He is the eldest son of Queen Victoria, grandmother of Europe, as she's known. And this is just a historical drama piece. This is a half a white pill for me. I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons between it and the 1974 TV show Fall of Eagles. I used to have a review for Fall of Eagles on this channel. I'm probably going to re-upload that this week with some minor edits to it. If you have to pick one, if you're looking for some kind of European historical drama, I would more strongly recommend Fall of Eagles over this. I think this is an okay supplemental piece, and it helps flesh out some of the European royal families and their ties to each other. I think this does a good job of that, but in terms of content and interest, I would definitely rank this lower than Fall of Eagles. This review is going to have a lot of spoilers in it, and I'm just going to kind of go over the 13 episodes and kind of what stood out to me, what I liked, and I'll just summarize at the very end. I want to apologize for the quality of the images and the videos I took. They're not super high quality, but it is an older show, and this is the best version I could find online. You can actually watch the show for free on YouTube. Someone just re-uploaded all 13 episodes. I'll have a link for that in the description, so check it out if you want. If you don't like it, well, it was free. The first episode, we're focusing on Queen Victoria and her husband, Albert. And Edward hasn't been born yet, but we're just introducing the parents. And I really like this because I didn't know a ton about Queen Victoria or even who her husband was. So this was definitely interesting. I kind of have this image of Victoria, and I think maybe a lot of people do, where she's just this kind of stern woman. She kind of has this regal face, if you will, but not so much like the woman behind that face, right? And kind of her insecurities, her problems, kind of her struggles, right? Because she's just gotten married to Albert. Now that she's a mother, it's reminded her that she's human, that she's a wife, that she's a woman, that she's a mother, right? But I really like Albert and Victoria. They were definitely a highlight for the show. There's a good image of them 15 minutes into the episode, and Albert has kind of, he's sort of struggling like his son Edward will struggle to be useful, to have a place, but unlike Edward, spoilers, Albert does get to find some use, and he is, his advice is taken, right? I really like this little gift that Victoria sets up for Albert now that they have matching desks so they can work together right next to each other. I think that's really cute. I think that's really nice. Albert struggles to get Victoria to trust him, that's something that they have to overcome. He gets in this big fight with the Baroness, over their child, over childcare. And, we have Victoria chasing him out of the room.
How dare you! No one has ever spoken to me like that!
Then it's time someone eat.
You forget yourself. Who do you think you are?
The prince! And your husband, madam.
Prince of 10 acres and a wood! You are nothing! And they were right, I should never have married you!
Then why did you? We'd both have been better off.
And we kind of see by the end of the episode that Victoria has kind of been pushed a bit. I don't view this as super negative where Albert is taking more of a role in the household. He's doing more to help Victoria, and he's kind of taking the center stage. I think you could view that as a somewhat bad thing. However, it's still, someone who clearly loves her and wants what's best for her, and they're going to be working together in the future, but we kind of have this shot of Victoria and Albert, and there's a minister, and Victoria's just getting kind of squashed between them. She's being pushed down, she's being pushed out. Second episode, here's Edward. Edward might not be the brightest boy, but that also probably has something to do with how he's being schooled and how he's being brought up, where it seems like this really brutal system, this really just awful system. There's also this Crimean War going on. I really know nothing about that. Sorry. It was cool to see Napoleon III, because he got like a brief mention in Fall of Eagles, right? So, but we actually get to see the guy, and we also get to see, Fritz, who's this Prussian prince who's going to marry the English princess Victoria, and they will be the parents of Kaiser Wilhelm II. And you're like, oh shit, this is really cool, because I've already seen these characters in Fall of Eagles, so now I get, I kind of have to see material like a few times to like make connections and be like, okay, here's how it's all fitting together. Yeah, more of like a setup episode, not too much going on. And Victoria seems to just kind of go from jealous and angry a lot, but also like a very loving mother, a very caring mother, but she's just kind of she kind of goes from one extreme to the other, it seems like. Episode 3, young Edward is on a tour of the United States. Apparently he visited the United States in 1860, so we're just right before the War of Northern Aggression. His parents are disappointed in him that he hasn't progressed that far in like his military training, and that's just, he's kind of a disappointment to them. And that's something that will like continue, and I think obviously has an effect on him. Edward also loses his virginity to an opera singer. They kind of sneak her in, and it's kind of this little scandal thing, that's going to be a reoccurring theme for Edward with sleeping around and little scandals, but we'll get into that. 4th episode, Edward's now, they want to not force him into a marriage, but push him into a marriage because he's getting up there in age, and they bring up this princess from Denmark, her name is Alex. She sounds nice, but they have a good little fight, he and Victoria, about her.
Marry in haste, repent at leisure.
You will not quote proverbs at me.
I'm sorry, Mama, but
It's revealed that Edward is sleeping with the actress and his parents know, and it's just, there's a little bit of embarrassment there. Albert has died at the end of the episode, and Victoria is just heartbroken. It's really terrible for her. I really like the actress for Victoria. I think she did a really good job. She was definitely one of the highlights of the show for I think she does a really good job. And, as the end credits are rolling by, we have the shot of, Albert's empty desk. I like that, I think it's simple, but I think simple is good. Episode 5, Edward is now married to Alex. We have this good image of the family, but even though they're quote unquote like one big European family, there's a lot of, fighting. And because Denmark is not as powerful as Prussia, they're not doing jack shit, even though that Prussia has now invaded and taken some Denmark territories, right? Something unfortunate that pops up in episode 6, and just continues is it seems that Edward is sleeping around, just at the dinner party and just how he interacts with women. And I looked it up after I watched the show. Apparently he had several mistresses, and it's such a fucking shame, because his wife is so nice. We get a really good scene at 30 minutes in with Victoria and, one of the grandchildren, It's just a good, funny moment, because, I usually have seen, Queen Victoria is, very stern, kind of harsh, kind of ruler, but, she opens up and she's, very human here. It's, it's really good.
But, Mama, if you treat children too severely at that age, they become shy, and then they start to fear those that they ought to love.
We never indulged any of you, and it has had no ill effect.
Georgie!
What? What are you doing?
You said I was little doggy and doggies don't wear any clothes. Woof woof.
It's all right, Alex. Georgie, you naughty boy.
Woof, woof. Children are a joy. I never want my home to be without grandchildren.
But Edward gets called into court for adultery, and it's just scandal after scandal with him. The Queen rejects making him a viceroy of Ireland, and I kind of have to wonder if he had more stuff to do and just more actual tasks, to occupy his time? Would he necessarily be sleeping around so much, or would he be like putting time into, more useful things? I don't know. Maybe that's a cope on my part. But you kind of have to question, like, if, he was doing more, if he felt more useful, would he be doing more? And I don't really know why Victoria doesn't trust him for stuff, because it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, Edward is not a serious man. He wastes his time with women and gambling and scandals, but it's like, okay, but he doesn't have anything to do, right? He doesn't have anything to do. And Edward gets very sick at the end of the episode with a bad fever, but he recovers. 7th episode, Edward's still desperate for something, so he gets to go to India. He's going without Alex, but then there's this whole, like, blackmail shit going on, and Alex gets involved, and it's like, fucking Christ, If you're going to be involved with, like, scandals and crap like that, can you at least leave Alex out of it? I simp for Alex a lot, but I'll cover more of it because she's just so nice. She is so nice. 8th episode, we get to meet Sasha, and Sasha is the ruler of Russia, and he's married to Minnie, and Minnie is Edward's sister because all the royal families are connected. So you're like, oh man, this is cool. And we get an introduction of Wilhelm II. He makes an appearance. He is very different from his Fall of Eagles character, so it's interesting to get like another interpretation of him, because in Fall of Eagles, he's kind of comical and jovial and just like kind of funny, and he's just like kind of amusing, but he's like very serious, but like sometimes incredibly like emotional and I don't know if I would say like nonsensical, but like almost hysterical almost in this show, but at times he's incredibly serious. So it was interesting to see that. And his wife, who is so kind to him, Alex, who's so good to Edward, who doesn't deserve it, says that he's been very depressed, but we have this nice little cutaway.
Yes, I think he still rather resents not being allowed to go. He's been very depressed these last few weeks.
No, it's true, I promise.
Kaiser dies, and then, Wilhelm II's father, Fritz, takes the throne, but he doesn't last very long. So then he dies, and then we have Wilhelm II on the throne. He gets to be Kaiser very, very young. 9th episode, it's another one of Edward's mistresses. It's Daisy Brooke, and there's this letter and all this like blackmail and shit, and it's all like terrible. Edward's 2 sons are grown up by now. They are Georgie and Eddie. I think Georgie is supposed to be like Edward V or something, like I understand like a little bit of like English monarchy and like the royal family like here and there, but I think it's George V, I guess. Who the fuck was George IV? George III was the crazy one. Maybe the 4th one was one of those. Anyways. But yeah, another scandal of Edward with hosting like illegal gambling stuff, and there's this blackmail stuff, and, Alex has to actually confront him over it. And then at the end of the episode, like very just abruptly, we have Eddie getting very sick and then actually just dying. And, it's really terrible for Alex. We don't really get to see too much emotion from Edward here, not even like in a later episode. But maybe that's just who he is. And we have Alex sitting alone at his bedside, and it's just terrible. There's some tension in the 10th episode between Edward and Wilhelm. And Alex just doesn't feel very useful to her family because her brother is actually the king of Greece, but the Turks are advancing, but the queen's not going to help, right? And Alex seems to maybe have some problems with her memory, but she definitely has like bad hearing, so she feels like left out here and there, and it's very sad. At the end of the episode, Victoria dies. She calls out Edward's name, and then she passes just like that, and she ruled for like a really long time, and it's kind of weird because we only get 3 episodes with Edward as king, but he only ruled from like 1901 to 1910. I want to say he definitely didn't make it to the First World War. 11th episode, people are swearing oaths to Edward. There's some stuff going on with the Kaiser, right? But Edward gets pretty sick again, and he has to have this operation, but by the end of it he's crowned, and you're like, Yeah, all right. More good stuff in the 12th episode, the Kaiser being back, Oh my God, I feel so bad for his wife. Like, Alex is just so kind and caring with the kids and all that. We have this really cute scene of Edward playing golf with some guys, and then Alex, like, comes on the field, or the golf pitch? The turf? I don't know. But Alex, they're playing their own version of golf, and it's very cute, and I am simping. I am simping for a dead monarch, sue me, whatever.
Oh, what the devil? Come on, Charlotte, come on. I won.
Oh!
And in this episode, Edward, like, he's finally king, right? He's wanted it for so long, but he's still not being listened to. They still don't really care what he has to say. But he goes on this tour of Europe. Apparently, this was like a bigger deal than I gave it credit for, because like the show didn't go into too much detail about what happens, because he gets the title Peacemaker, and apparently like he did a lot of stuff to improve relations between England and France, but we don't really cover that in the show, so I don't really know. But apparently it was a bigger deal than I gave it credit for, so fair enough. I might have to do some more research on it, like what exactly did he do for the relations between England and France, but apparently it was something, right? It was enough to give him that title. There's more stuff with the Kaiser, where the Kaiser's just fucking hysterical, not in a good way, just like extremely emotional and just kind of unstable. And apparently he gave this speech about how he's going to build a railroad between Berlin and Baghdad, and he just ranted about the Jews in the speech as well, but he wouldn't go into details about how he's going to make this railroad or anything. It's just like kind of funny, but also like kind of fucking crazy, to let this guy be in charge. It's interesting.
It's a pity he wasted his talks with the Foreign Office.
How so?
Well, he spent the whole time raving against the Jews and describing a railway he intends to build from Berlin to Baghdad.
What on earth for?
Well, he either couldn't or wouldn't say so.
It was only I who prevented the states of Europe from joining against you. It is only I who stop my people from marching, from taking what should be ours. Only I keep my people in check. Everything I have sacrificed, everything for the affection I have for you, for our family. And see how I'm treated, cruelly, cruelly misunderstood on all sides.
Willie.
I have... Excuse me.
But in this episode, Edward ends up dying, and then there's this speech at the end that really pissed me off, where some of the ministers, like, they call Edward, like a really justly beloved monarch, and I'm like, for fucking what? For most of his life, it just seemed like he was getting into scandal after scandal with, like, various mistresses, gambling and shit like that, and he was just kind of an embarrassment. He really humiliated his wife again and again, and she was just a saint to put up with him and to put up with all of it, right? So I'm like, more justly beloved, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was kind of a piece of shit. But apparently he did a lot of good stuff with, like, relations with European countries, so maybe, he's a better man than I give him credit for, but I'm just like, I don't know, like, just from what we've seen, like, most of his episodes seem to focus on just him doing something bad, him doing something morally wrong, and then there's just his good wife sitting at home,
No man in our time was more justly beloved, and no ruler in any time was more sincerely true, more unswervingly loyal, more uniformly kind to his advisors and servants. He earned well the title by which he will always be remembered, the peacemaker of the world.
But that's the series, I think, again, it's like half a Whitepill. There's some interesting stuff, but a lot of the episodes seem to be just Edward has done something, like, morally wrong again, That seems to be kind of a lot of it. But I think it's, a decent supplemental work, but on its own, if you have to put a gun in my head, you have to pick one, go for Fall of Eagles all day, every day. And if you just want, like, historical drama, like, great show, I, Claudius, I always recommend that. But the show is good at seeing the buildup of the war, of connecting like the European royal families more, and like how they're all really like, again, it's like the War of the Cousins, and it's like, okay, we really get to see that. We really get to see how that works. I did have a lot of pity for Edward when he was young. He had a really harsh childhood, and you can see like just how isolated and difficult it was for him. I really loved Victoria and Albert. I think they were great together. I really loved Alex later on. Edward was just kind of a bad man in a lot of ways, so it was difficult for me to root for him, and it's not like his scandals were incredibly interesting either. It seemed to be just like, I cheated with X, I cheated with Y this week. So yeah, it was somewhat difficult to root for him, but still worth seeing. Like, I don't really regret it, because at least like I did learn a bit more about like European history and stuff. Next week, I'm probably going to do another kind of British historical TV show, a shorter one. I think I'm going to go for the Aristocrats. It was like made in 1999, I want to say. And we'll see. It might be something else, but that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Anyways, I want to say thanks for watching, and Dr. Infinity out.